Thank you for joining us this beautiful Saturday morning, the last Saturday in the month of October. The issue of leadership recruitment at all levels of governance in Nigeria is central to our current predicament. Getting it right is key to the resolution of our poor governance and development process. Months after growing calls for President Bola Tinubu to rejig his cabinet, the former Lagos State governor on Wednesday sacked 5 of his ministers. He reassigned 10 to new ministerial portfolios and appointed 7 new ones for Senate confirmation.
Not to also forget that because you talked about all levels of governance, we had some turbulence before the local government elections in Rivers State. Today, Kano State is having local government elections. You also know all of the drama
that's been going on.
that went on before this morning.
Well, Akwa Ibom went kind of unnoticed.
Unnoticed on the same day as Rivers, by the way.
Yes, because
and Benue.
Rivers took all the shine off everybody else.
And Benue that same day, so.
Rivers took the biscuit, as we say.
Oh, you're not the akara. So, anyway.
Now, to look at this matter of leadership recruitment with us this morning, I'd like to welcome a leadership consultant, Mr. Olatunji Shobodu. Good morning. And a leadership coach is joining us via Zoom, and he's Mr. Toye Shobande. Good morning, Mr. Shobande.
Good morning. Good to see you again.
Interestingly, both of them are Dr. something or Dr. something.
Oh.
Dr. Shobodu, Dr.
Not
Shobodu.
misters. Oh, well, my bad.
Never mind.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, we have acknowledged the fact that we're not doing too well in this leadership matter. How do we approach it from here on, after admitting that so far we have not done well?
Well, thank you very much. Well, I mean, leadership is crucial. And I think obviously we can't make much progress unless we find a way to address this particular issue. But first, because we're talking about governance at all levels, we're obviously making reference to the political context, which is a bit different from what you have like in the private or corporate sector.
But that's not to say that there aren't core similarities.
Well, yes, but for now I will speak to the differences. But the context is important. Because if you don't bear in mind the context, then you may be attempting to force something that will not work. Okay, the political process has its rules, and they are different from how you would recruit a leader or how you would nominate a leader or appoint a leader in the corporate sector. And that's because in the political process, there is a way participation is different. Now, first of all, if you are not part of a party, you are limited, for example, in the opportunity that you have to hold any leadership position, especially elective positions. All right, the best you could possibly aspire for is maybe like a ministerial appointment or some other pseudo kinds of appointments. And even that, because you are not part of the system, you are limited further. So we must address the issue of, first, who are those that get into the political system? How do people, participate? How do I, for example, become eligible, to be elected into a position? And that means that, the electorate also will have a decision to make. But that decision of the choice of who we vote for will be determined is a secondary decision. What do I mean? Because you can only vote for who the party puts forward.
Yeah.
So the process of how the party presents a candidate becomes crucial. Now, what I think one of the areas that we really need to address is how you get the right people to be a part of that process.
Okay, let me ask Dr. Shobande, do you think we even understand the context of leadership? I'm sure you've listened to Dr. Shobodo also speak to it, but do you think generally, as a people, looking at what he also talked about, the fact that we, the people, the populace, make a secondary decision, do you think generally we understand the context of leadership?
I think we do understand the context of leadership as a people. However, the framework of the understanding is where the problem is. The framework is around strong men and not institutions. And that is where our problem with the understanding of leadership as a concept. We have always viewed leadership from the perspective of strong men. No leadership that is sustainable, that can lead a people to progress and development, can be built or sustained around strong men, but rather strong institutions. And that is where our problem is. So that lack of understanding that there is a need to build leadership around strong institutions and not strong men has been a major limiting factor for us.
Okay.
And when I say that, I'm saying that in the sense that where we don't have a clear definition of leadership criteria, there are no clear definition. The definition and the understanding we have is subjective along ethnic, cultural, and religious lines. But when it comes to national or political development, we have to understand that to establish a leadership recruitment process at all levels, the first point of call is to have a defined leadership criteria around a vision, not personalities.
Okay, quick punctuation there, Dr. Shobande. Again, taking from what Dr. Shobodo said about the first line of selection, or should I say shortlisting, happens from the political parties. Do you think the political parties themselves, because it's like there are so many people jostling for a job, and the political parties do the shortlisting, so to speak, and put forward certain people for Nigerians to choose from. So do you think even the political parties themselves have understanding of leadership, or do you think they have any idea what you're talking about where you say we need to have certain leadership criteria to determine who the political parties put forward?
Thank you for that question. The same problem permeates itself through the political parties, and that is what is reflective on the society, because members of the political parties are also people in the society. And where in the political party structure as we have, where there are no defined leadership criteria, how many of the political parties do we have that is built around an ideological framework that benefits the institutions that produce leaders in the nation? Because the political party itself, the selection process is flawed. We see that at every election cycle. And that is when you see all the jostling, the politicking, the internal fractions show up. Because it's not built, for example, the political parties themselves, the criteria we are talking about and the selection process is not built around competencies, and it's not built around representation. It's still built around this strong man effect and not regard or respect for institutions. Also, it's not built around value systems. There are no clear value systems. So I always say that currently in Nigeria, we don't have a political party that is being structured around an ideological framework. That ideological framework is what now produced the criteria for the selection process. And that selection process has to identify the skills of the people, the experiences, the qualities required for effective leadership, with integrity, with vision, with problem-solving abilities. When all of those are not clearly defined, it becomes blurred with a lot of ethnic and religious permutations and calculations. And that is where the problem is with the political party itself. The political parties sometimes have constitutions or have processes, but yet they take themselves to court. There are internal fractions between one party. And we've seen that, over the years. For example, you remember many years in Rivers State where Governor Amechi, emerged as the governor based on a Supreme Court ruling after his own party member was installed as governor. Yet there's a lot of debate around that. So that shows us clearly that the current political structure that we have along the lines of the political parties do not have a defined leadership selection criteria. Rather, they have a subjective leadership criteria within the strong men of the political party. And those strong men are usually those who finance.
Dr. Shobani, thank you. Dr. Shobani, when we talk about these issues this way, my mind always goes back to the previous republics that we have had. We had a situation where, I remember someone showing me the membership card for UPN in the Second Republic. In fact, I think I also saw something of another person for Action Group in the First Republic. And I also know that that's what, went on in those periods. So we had a situation where leaders encouraged, mobilized their people to join certain political parties and, championed everything. What do you think may have been responsible for the degrading that we seem to have had over time?
Well, I think that, with regard to the point that Doctor has been making about institutions, the institutions will not throw up a quality process beyond that of the quality of participation. You won't have an institution that is better than the quality of the membership. And one of the things that you find is who are those who belong to parties. Many of those you would love to be a part of the process, who have something to offer because of their exposure, because they are the ones that can relate to these issues of having ideology, having core values and stuff. They don't join the process. They are not part of the process. It's like considering.
Why is that?
Well, those are the issues that we have to address. You can't stay out of the process and expect change. We'll be fooling ourselves. If there is a system that's in place, and the only way that, this system we know to produce the leadership, all right, you have to play according to the rules. There is no way of emerging, into a leadership position without being part of that system. What we tend to do most times is that we speak against the system, we, play down the system and all of that. And let me use this illustration, drawing from what I call office politics. All right. And, you find typically technocrats, those who, would take the position, I want my work to speak for me, my skill, my competence, and all of that. And so they stay out of, the politics of the workplace, and they tell you, no, it is evil, it is this, it is that. But the reality of it is that every organization has its rules. There's a way things are done. There are many stakeholders, all right? You can't play in a political setting as a technocrat and expect to win. Why? Because you are trying to play contrary to the rules or oblivious of the rules. So it's the same thing. We speak a great deal against the system. The average person speaks against the political system, but the reality is that the emergence of leadership is via that same system. All right, it's via that same system. And the peculiarities of that system is that there are many stakeholders, who have individual interests, whose interests tend to conflict for the most part. So we need to get that, to have that understanding that until you are a part of the system, you can't change it. Until you are a part of the system and you learn to play according to the rules, you can't change it. The truth is, technocrats won't win within a political context. The political context is for politicians. Unfortunately, we label politicians differently. Yes, we know the categories that really offer no value. But the real politician is one who understands that there are many stakeholders and interests, and each one has a responsibility for pursuing his interests.
I'm wondering how many of them we have. Don't answer that question yet.
With you, Dr. Shobande said earlier that the selections of the political parties are flawed. How do we then get to a place where the political parties throw up credible people who have experience in leadership, who are going to bring that experience to bear in whatever positions they do end up being in?
It seems to me that it's fairly straightforward. I mean, you and I observe the political parties. We observe what goes on there. There are things we're not happy about. There are people that emerge that we virtually just shudder that how did this happen? But what do? We still sit back and we're expecting change to happen. It's not going to happen.
So what can we do?
So you get in there because many of the people don't have. I mean, I probably would be guilty of saying, but it's because I don't have an interest in pursuing, anything along that line. But you have to get in there. If you see that what is going on there is inappropriate or will not work for us, you can't sit back. You have to step forward, become part of the membership, get to know the process of how things happen.
Question?
A lot of times we're too sophisticated to get ourselves in the game, and we're expecting to win. No, you'll be speaking from outside. You have to speak.
Someone listening to you right now would be wondering, no, I'm not going to do that. Dr. Shobande, speaking to what Dr. Shobode just said now, someone is commenting that unless you remove the paths to install political leaders through political parties, only through political parties, we're still going to be where we are, or maybe even go back. So leading to the question, it's like a kind of asking that same question of how do I get in that place
without belonging to a political party?
Without belonging to a political party. Someone is saying that, okay, do you think it is time for us to begin to consider independent candidacy? Because, at the end of the day, we see what private sectors practitioners do. Meanwhile, these same individuals get into public office, and it's always like, wait a minute, are you a different person from the person who was in private sector?
Yeah.
What do you think, is responsible for that?
He did a fantastic analysis too, and I agree with every point he raised. We can't sit down and criticize and condemn the system that we are not a part. I'm an advocate of the fact that we should join the political parties. We should be responsible party members. But the challenge that I have is how many career professionals will be allowed by their employers to attend political party meetings early hours of the morning and midnight that the politicians are committed to. That's where the problem is. It's unrealistic at this point to suggest that we don't need political parties. It's not possible. But the truth of the matter is that the only vehicle to our political emancipation, the only realistic vehicle to our political emancipation right now is through the political parties. And where professionals have to humble themselves enough not to feel that, because the problem with the average Nigerian is that we have this savior complex, and we carry this savior complex too far by condemning the system and thinking we are above board. Then we get into the system and the system demystifies them. But that's exactly what is going on, especially with the technocrats who find themselves in government as ministers, as governors, as, the system demystifies them. It demystifies the noise around them because of this savior complex that we have. I think that the current structure of the political parties is being designed to, it's been designed to frustrate people like that, people with such savior complex.
Could it be because sometimes we expect that, because most of the time when we talk about political parties, we are only looking at governorship roles, of presidency roles, the high roles, the legislature, National Assembly, State Assembly. Because one of the things that a good number of local government autonomy advocates have been talking about is this new wave occasioned by the judgment of the Supreme Court should naturally attract people of credibility and integrity at the lowest levels, the teachers and retired personnel who still have some fire in them. What do you think of that? Because most of the time, people look at these people as the ones who can really do much. Meanwhile, the direct effect of governance happens at the lowest levels of governance, which had been comatose over the years.
That's what I grew up with. That's what I grew up with. The most effective leadership development process and leadership recruitment process is through the local participation. That is where credible people can go and start from. It's unrealistic. We have a lot of unrealistic expectations, thinking that it is the position that makes the leader. Leadership is not position. Leadership is responsibilities. When we understand that definition of what leadership is, then it will stop attracting people who think with their savior complex they can just go and start from the position of a governor or commissioner. No, start from the local level. The local level is where development takes place and where development is evened out. And the reality is that, thank God for the Supreme Court decision now, and we are praying that the governors will domesticate and effectively, run with these decisions and they don't, truncate it. The truth is that there's so much attraction, not only to the center, but the state level. But if we all go into the local government level and focus on the quality of the personnel at the local government level, not just only the chairman, the councillors, all of them, that is where the development will be felt by the people. The development is not felt by the people because not only the power is centralized, but the goodies, the things that attract them is centralized. So again, the processes are not transparent.
At the end of what really gets to me the most about all of this that you're talking about, Dr. Shobade and Dr. Shobodu, is that the people who are directly affected by these things, they don't know all of these theories, these policies, these ideologies that we're propounding. They are at the mercy, as Alero said earlier, of those that are thrown up. And that's really, really painful because, like it or not, they will only elect the people that the political parties have thrown up. Unfortunately, they seem to be at a loss.
Well, let me put the blame for that at the doorsteps of people like you and I, who are more enlightened and who should know that we're supposed to be part of the process. And until we're part of the process, nothing will change because they don't know. All right? Now, one of the things that amuses me is when people, and you look at the time, the last presidential election, and people will tell you the 3 C's, character, credibility, competence. Everybody talks about that, and I'm asking myself, what do they mean? The truth is that the average person doesn't understand what they mean. What is competence? I mean, who is competent among the three? What is character? Do you know the character of the three? What's your definition of character? Those things, as relevant, as useful as they are not understood by the people who are on printing.
Wow.
Now, so it becomes a big challenge. All right. Do the people really know who they're voting for? And I think that, that's even a greater issue, because you may discover that we don't have the kind of options that we have by the kind of candidates that we were presented with. Because when the chips are really down, I don't know how many would actually qualify if we were to fully apply those 3 C's. I don't know how many.
But you also talked about the politics of it.
Oh yes. Now this is where, let me share with you that the issue, I love the point you made about this private sector. And you have private sector people come in, and then you begin to wonder, are you a different person? And that point is very instructive, because all too often we have made it appear as if the solution lies with the private sector leadership. If only we can get them to come into government. Well, you have had enough, cases now. Can you please tell me which private sector person has done well? Which private sector person? I'd like to exclude, Lagos perhaps, and for a number of reasons. But where have we found a private sector, representative who's been in government who has done well? For me...
You spoke to this earlier when you said that they need to understand the political system.
Now, that is correct, all right? I stand by that. But I'm saying the issues are deeper. Because if you then have had an opportunity for some private sector people to come in, and there have been nothing to write them about, that tells you that the leadership challenge we have is a lot deeper. Now, what has happened with the private sector people? And I had the opportunity of explaining this to a brother of mine who was wondering, trying to figure out why has it been like that. And I tried to to paint a picture. I said, in the private sector, these people you are talking about, the private sector had rules. The private sector had policies. If you are the MD of a bank, you can't tell a junior officer in the bank, open the vault, bring me $1 million. He's going to ask you. He's going to ask you for documentation.
Yes.
Even when you give him documentation, he's going to check with his boss to see, does the MD have the approval? Does he have the power to ask me to bring this?
He's the MD.
Oh, no, it doesn't work. It doesn't in the private sector.
He doesn't own the money.
It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. Now,
so they cannot say in the private sector, do you know who I am?
Oh, that what? I know who you are. You are the MD. But you also know that you told me to respect process.
Exactly.
And
that's what you taught me.
Oh, yes, and there is process. And there is an organ that is checking. There's the auditor who is going to ask me questions. All right? So it's not going to be about the MD. And by the way, the auditor has a dual reporting line. It reports directly to the board just as it reports to the MD. So the auditor can look the MD in the eye and say, sir, there is nothing to support this now. Look at where the difference is. So the MD is limited in the context of the private sector. Now the MD goes and becomes governor of a state. He would ask them to bring $1 billion. They will bring it, they will change it to dollar, and they will put it by his feet. Nobody would ask him any question. Nobody dares ask him any question. Why? Because of the system that is without rules. So, and now this is where the issue is. The best of private sector people, how much would they have seen in cash? Look, power corrupts. It corrupts absolutely.
Absolutely.
A lot of us that speak the big grammar, all right, when we get into the system, lacking character, and we see money, it's a different ballgame. You'll be speaking a different.
And when you see how much power you wield, because your word is final.
Yeah.
The same thing, I suspect, happens at the level of the kind of like CBN and Co.
Dr. Shobande, your final words on this. I mean, Dr. Shobande has given us too big a pie to chew. What are your last words on this conversation? Your final words, Dr. Shobande.
Oh, sorry. I'm enjoying Dr. Shobodu's contribution because on this same program, I've shared this same perspective in time past. And I've said that I am, especially when I was talking about the youth, and I said, look, I am not very confident that the average person that we have in Nigeria, especially the youth, if they find themselves in government, they will do better. And because, it is not in the grammar, it is not in the big words.
Yeah.
It is how relatable these people are to those who are going to make the political decisions. It was in this same country that we were in when a governor was removed by asking women who clean the streets to line up at the political party primaries. And they were voting the governor out, saying they don't want him. The same people were. So we need to rejig the system with a clear, transparent process. If we can do something, the technocrats who are, willing to go into the system and participate, because that's the major issue. We need to have clear public participation in the political system, particularly through the structure.
Okay.
Just for that, but it has to be consultative, with humility.
Okay.
And with
it's like you both want to start a Nigeria leadership conference here this morning. So essentially, you both have told us this morning that it's not just about caterwauling. So
we have to get in there and take part.
Get the job done.
Are you going to take part? Or are you taking part already?
Well, I'm taking part already. I mean, what I do now is to develop leaders based on truth.
Dr. Shobande, are you taking part already?
Yes, I'm taking part by documenting my thoughts. I published a book titled The Leadership Myth, Why Leadership Principles Do Not Work in Sub-Saharan Africa. And I articulated my thoughts clearly, not just only in that book. I've been organizing a school of governance for young people, training them on how to get involved in political participation in the country. And
which political party do you belong to?
By virtue of my role, I won't be able to make that declaration publicly at the moment. But trust me.
So, long and short, you are telling us no caterwauling.
No caterwauling.
Get in the kitchen, get your hands dirty, and then clean
become a politician.
Dr. Toye Shobande, a leadership coach who joined us via Zoom, and we had in the studio Dr. Olatunji Shobodu, a leadership consultant. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
But we would like to see you, the two of you, as card-carrying members of one political party or the other, same as you are advising us.
And the candidates for one.
To get in the kitchen and clean up the mess. We can't clean it from staying on the outside.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Please don't ask Alero to join a political party. She won't last.
Yeah.
Sunrise will return in just a moment with another interesting conversation.